able to draw boundaries, also you have to know you are worthy. You don't owe anyone anything. And I'm not saying this in a resentful way. A lot of people talk about saying no and drawing boundaries. They have this resentment or this angry kind of undertone.
Mm-hmm.
Not like that at all. You're saying no because I'm sorry, but I can't. I hope
Mm-hmm.
you get it done, but I can't do it.
Right.
Just that. And also saying no, offer no explanation. Why do you need to explain to people your reasons why you're not doing something?
Right.
Right?
Okay.
That the other person should be able to take your no non-personally and just accept the no as a no, that you can't do it. There's no grudge, there's no hard feelings. So it's both sides.
Mm.
So in a healthy way to live, to be true to oneself, to live authentically, is to be able to say no to someone and to be able to accept someone else's no without any emotions. It is as it is.
Welcome everyone to Heart Talk. We are live. Today is Thursday, and it's a great joy to have all of you join live us on Heart Talk. Now, today we have got some very interesting discussions to go through, and I want to just welcome all those of you who are on Instagram. Switch over to Heart Talk with Dr. Charles Lee. This is the ENER Club, and we have a lunchtime talk on Wednesdays and Fridays, but today is exceptional because we have an exceptional guest who is joining us today. And so before I invite her in, I just want to read a few things first. Her name is Amy Low, and she's from Kuala Lumpur, and we'll hear more about herself later on. But listen to this introduction. She's a seasoned marketer with more than 20 years of experience in strategic marketing, planning, and communications. She was serving several, public listed companies, and basically she's from the corporate world. Her forte, now listen to this, was concept development, plans and strategies, research and analysis, demographic assessments, branding and communications, advertising, you name it, promotions, design and production. She was in it. But she left it for one reason, and today we're going to find out why. Because, at the end of the day, it's all about our lives, it's all about our self worth. So, joining me today, right here, live on Heart Talk on the ENER Club, is Amy Low. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Dr. Charles.
Pleasure. Please call me Charles. It's a wonderful time to have a chat with you during lunchtime. I know a lot of things that you would be able to share with us today. And as I just read off your resume, your forte, or where you were before, and what that kind of life was for 25 years. And 10 years ago, you were doing a research, and you were trying to seek out a new master plan that you wanted to bring into that world, and you realized there was something else that was planted in you, and that became the seed of what you're doing today. So tell us and give us some information more about yourself and where you're coming from.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So yes, to jump right in, 10 years ago, I was doing a research to create a new concept for a development master plan. And the concept was theme as wellness. Entering into that research with completely no knowledge at all about what wellness is, other than cosmetic surgery, uh, a spa, or beauty services. So I dove straight into it, and for 2 whole months, I was living, breathing, eating wellness. But the thing is, I'm a lifelong learner, but this concept just got to me. The more I did it, the more I researched, the deeper the so-called rabbit hole was. That
Uh-huh.
seemed to be an end.
Right.
And when I presented my findings to my bosses, we realized that it was too broad. We couldn't anchor on every part of wellness, because wellness ranges from cosmetic to hospitalization, and there's that in the middle range that is so huge. So I decided to zoom into a part of wellness which is preventive.
Okay, so let me just pause you there. I come from the aesthetic world, 40 years, and 35 years as a plastic surgeon, and wellness is always elusive for me because they come in for things that other than themselves. They're trying to seek out that place where they are comfortable with themselves. But I want to go back again to that corporate world. What were you doing at that time that you had to sort out wellness? What made you do that trigger point? What was it there that led you to it?
So the company that I was working with, we were embarking on a new project in a new area
Uh
in
huh.
Malaysia,
Uh-huh.
and it was a joint venture with other parties I shall not mention.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So in that joint venture company, the company that I was working with and the JV partners, we decided that wellness was going to be the team. But no one knows
Yep.
how, so how do we present it in a development? No one has ever done it before in Malaysia, as I believe, at that point in time. I mean, there were retirement homes and such, but nothing that is integrative and for the healthy. So that was who we were targeting. So before you get sick, we want to offer you facilities and services that help you live a healthy life. So
Right.
that it wasn't decided by me, but was kind of given to me. But nobody had a clue, so it was an interesting process. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
So when you got into that, I mean the whole concept of wellness. Let's move on from there.
yeah.
So while you were developing this master plan,
Mm.
you found that there was another game plan for your own life, right? You felt it. I mean, how did that moving out of it? I mean, that must have been a terrific decision for you to do and make.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize it at that point in time. It only took effect like 2 years, a year or two, no, more than that actually. It only took effect like 3 years later.
Uh huh.
Yeah, because 3 years later also was a time where major events happened in my life. And of course, uh, I mean, it's the same with everyone. If everything is going fine, no one will want to change a thing about their life. But once things get turned upside down, then that's where you start to search for meaning. So put two and two together, that seed that was planted when I was doing the research started to bloom.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Because that led you into your own self. I remember these words. That in fact, Socrates, I think, said this, that the unexamined life is not worth living,
Yeah,
and the biggest, I think, for me in my own life, having worked 40 years, is when do you press that pause button?
you never until something happens.
Until you're hit against the wall
Yes,
and you realize, oops, it's stopped, and you can't delete, but you just have to take stock that
correct.
there's more to life than what you've been giving and giving and giving and servicing. And then you end up servicing yourself. I realized that. So yeah, so take us on. So that decision came like 3 years later. You realized to opt out must have been difficult. I mean, what did you go through?
Very difficult. Even at the point of realization, I was still trying to deny. I was still in denial, trying to prolong, because why would you rock the boat when everything was going well? I mean, I was earning well, I had no worries. Why would you want to go and throw everything away? So the procrastination actually lasted for, I think, about 5 years.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah, so I was in denial for 5 years until what I recognize as a sign from the universe or from God that because I had some challenges in the corporate world. And now, on hindsight, it's very clear to me, because when I was in corporate world, it wasn't speaking to my soul. But
Right.
yet I was good at what I did, and my work was recognized. That I just continued on, because that's what everyone does, right? You
Yes.
finish school, you get a good job, you get promoted and stuff like that. So I just carried on. But looking back now, I realized that something wasn't sitting right, and then eventually, I realized what one of the main lessons were. You see, I'm a bit of a rebel. So I'm not someone who takes instruction blindly. I will question. And a lot of bosses don't like to be questioned. So, and they'll be like, who is this girl? Who does she think she is? But it doesn't make sense. I will ask. So there was a key lesson that I had to overcome on my part, which is the relationship with my immediate superior. And finally, I saw it. I knew it. I mean, it was just staring me in the face one day, and I realized that, oh, this is how I can overcome this. And I tried a new. So they say, you do things the same way, but you expect a different outcome. That's not going to work,
Right.
right?
Right.
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 So
Absolutely.
at that point in time, that saying came to me, and I realized that, hey, I've been doing things the same way over and over again. Of course, it's not going to work. I can already predict the result. So then I decided, okay, let's experiment and see how this goes. So I did. I took a different approach, and it paid off. The response, the reaction was completely different, and then I understood then that
Different approach in what way, Amy?
in the way I question, maybe in the way in the duration, like maybe not immediately, you do it like a couple of days later, or you do it somewhere else, like, just completely out of the norm.
So if I were to use a word, you paused, you became mindful.
Yes,
You stopped and you took stock of what was happening, and
yes.
I tell you, you're really speaking to a generation called the sandwich generation. And I'm very passionate about that, because from my age I can look back and I can see you, and I realize that you and many others like you and yourself, the millennials and this particular generation are becoming very vocal. You see, when I went through that time in the 40s and all that, in 50s, we just took things, we just carried on, we never questioned.
Right.
And now the this whole thing about psychologically unemployable, meaning, why do I need to just be, sell myself off when I've got some worthiness? I've got some worthiness. I'm worth my own. And I think that's the biggest thing that you found in yourself, right? Is that you're answerable to yourself, and you're accountable to yourself first before the person in front of you. And okay, so yeah.
Not just that, but also you have literally no control over anything else or everyone else except yourself.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So change begins with yourself. Who said that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's true.
Right?
And I struggle with that till today, because because you can hit so many situations in life which can't change and won't change, but until you change yourself.
Right.
And that itself is a task of its own. So tell me, so coming out, that must have been that transition stage where you started to find out more about yourself. So let's talk about this conversation that you are now a coach, because you came out from a situation, you got yourself nurtured into what you thought would be the desires of your mind, body, and soul that you are expert in now. And today you're a coach in that particular direction. Talk to us about the conversations you had between your mind, body, and soul. What is that aspect of life all about?
So I'm just going to take a step back first.
Sure.
When I came to that realization about what I had to learn to graduate from the corporate world, I was already in meditation for, I think, about 2 years at that.
Okay.
So somewhere in between researching on wellness and the last being in the last employment of my work life, somewhere in between, I had already started doing meditation. And I would say that that meditation process gave me that insight towards the end of my career. So when I transitioned out, it's to be honest, it's a blur to me. It was a blur to me because number one, it's not 100% my choice. Something happened in the company, and it was sort of downsizing and all that. So I knew that my position was shaky because the higher up you are, the more they can save, right? So
Right.
then I decided, okay, I think I've come to the end of this phase of my life, but I had no clue about what I was going to do next. Absolutely none. So, but resignation notice was 3 months. So I thought, okay, I have 3 months to, think about it. So I resigned, and immediately I decided to go to Koh Samui in Thailand to get my teacher certification for yoga as an instructor. I have already been practicing for a couple of years, and it has brought me a lot of benefit, both mentally as well as physically. Because physically, I have scoliosis, and after 3 years of practicing, I noticed that my spine was straighter. So I mean, all these benefits is undeniable. It's seen, it's felt. So I decided to go and take my yoga instructor certification, and I did. I spent a month there by the beach, became really dark, and and then I came back, and still not having a very. I had no trajectory. I had no direction, because the only thing I ever knew how to do was marketing, creative, advertising, branding, and all those that
Right.
you beginning of the this show. So but I trusted the universe to be guided. But I knew that I had to open my eyes and be ready to receive. So some people say God, some people say universe, creator, but to me it's all the same. We often we pray and we ask, but we are not tuning in to receive the answers. So what I did was I opened myself up, and I just followed. And I'm a person who never say no. Anyone comes to me with something new that I've not done before, just like interviews like this, I will not say no, because there's always something to learn from it. And once I learn, if it's not for me, then good, at least I tried. So
Right.
I started teaching yoga, very new in teaching. And then a friend came over and said, hey, would you like to be a trainer? With your 20 over years of experience in the corporate world, you can relate to them very well. And that's true, because I've been through trials and tribulations in the corporate world. I've started from as an executive and risen all the way to a GM. So that's not a short process. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? And I explored into being a trainer, and then I got myself certified with HRDF, and then was having the time of my life, because it's so motivating to be motivating somebody else. And I realized that was what was missing when I was in the corporate world. I became so detached from the actual work, from the people, because the higher you rise, you just basically get put into a room and sit in front of a computer. What you were once passionate about doing, you no longer are hands-on. So when I
No.
came back to the ground and I dealt with people, I found that, hey, I'm motivating them. They're uplifting me. And after every work occasion, no matter how tired I am, I felt energized. And
Right.
till today, like if I'm teaching a class, a yoga class, I may enter the class very tired, but always, without fail, when I come out of the class, I'm alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I think I just completed a consultation in the Asia Pacific region called the Asia Pacific Consultation on Mindfulness in the marketplace.
Mhm.
And having worked in the marketplace for 40 years, the only thing that I can say is that as a doctor, There is no other marketplace than serving the sick or serving something that you're focused on. And so our channel of friends, a circle of friends where we channel our energy into and all that is very limited. And so you don't have the skill of connecting with people and connect, I mean, it matters a lot in life. Now, when you talk about mindfulness, and so when I was putting this whole consultation together, Amy, I realized how much I missed in my own life.
Yes.
Just simple awareness in ordinary life that there is power in the present. You cannot live in the past, you've got no sense of idea what the future is going to be, but just the power of living in the present. And that was refreshing for me. It was, it was really a rejuvenating kind of an experience. But this mind, body, soul, take us into this connection between the mind, body, and the soul. Tell us something about that connection, because in this world that we're living in, it's so fragmented, it's so disconnected, it's full of disruption. But I think if we are at peace with ourselves, and that's what you found, to be able to relate with people, talk to us about that mind, body, soul connection, and then I'll go take you deeper.
Okay, so as a disclaimer, I am not a master. I'm still growing in terms of getting that mind-body connection, but definitely more now than before. So coming out of what I was used to for more than 2 decades, that connection was also off, very off. I was very much in my head, and I still am in my head, but I always try to bring it down to the
There
heart.
you go.
Yeah. So when you want to bring it down to the heart, you got to deal with emotions. And
Right.
if you're not comfortable with how you feel, then that's going to be a barrier. So before I could bring it down to my heart and continue to bring it down to my heart, I had to process a lot of unresolved feelings and emotions that was in me. So what happened over the early part of my life was, yes, I'm a warrior. I'm determined. I'm strong. So every time I fell, whether it's at work or in personal life, I get up and I carry on. That's what all of us do. You get up, you carry on. You get up. You have no time to waste. No time to sit and cry and process feelings. No such nonsense, right? So over the years, layers after layers have been built. So then you want to reverse it. You got to peel off layer after layer, right?
Right.
The more you undo that, the easier the path is to go into your heart.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and to live in the heart, it's something very vulnerable. You gotta, there's no more mask. You are who you are. There's no Amy the name card and Amy at home. It's
Yeah,
just
right.
one version. Yes. So the body and mind connection, in my own practice, I do breathing exercises. Of course, I practice yoga. These are my go-tos whenever I'm overwhelmed or I'm stressed. Or when I need clarity, I do that as well. Meditation, not so much these days. But meditation does not have to happen at some point in a meditator's life. It doesn't have to happen when you sit down. When you are very aware, when you are very present, it's a form of meditation. And meditation can happen in the things that you do as well. It doesn't have to just sit down. So that's my go-to to maintain a body and mind connection.
Yeah, I think that's so much of what I feel and learn now, because I came up with this M&M formula, and it's so very real what you're saying, and that is the mindfulness of fixing it in your mind what you want to do, but it's taking it down to the heart level, because you live from there. That's the fountain of life. And once you live that, I talk about abundance all the time. What does the abundant life now look like to you? Because obviously there was scarcity. There are a lot of people who are working with a mindset of scarcity. And now you come to me and you come across to all of us that there's this abundance mindset that you have found within yourself, which you can feed on because you're at home with yourself. That transitioning from something that is missing to something that is fulfilled. is what a lot of people would desire to be in. And so, talk to me more about that abundance of life, the mindfulness.
So abundance is not just money. Unfortunately, a lot of people immediately attach it to that. So did I. My salary went from a 5-figure salary down to a 3-figure salary when I transitioned. So that was the shock that I had.
Right.
But while earning is important, definitely important, abundance is also the people you have around, your support system. Is the other blessings in life, like being able to go out in nature, and very simply, in every breath that you take, that's a blessing, and that's abundance.
Amen. Right.
You
Right.
know, that we can breathe freely. Is that not abundance? So it's very simplistic to me. Basically, stop and appreciate everything in your life, no matter big or small. There are many aspects in life that we can appreciate if we just pause. Yeah.
You're perfect, because there are many who are, I know, and I was speaking to a lady yesterday who is in the late 30s and going on into the 40s. They're struggling. I was talking to you the other day about this whole, inflation kind of crisis of living that we're coming into. And many of us are kind of like living as if there's tomorrow is another day, and everything's going to be sweet song and dance. And there you are in UK, they are screaming inflation, no food on the table, crisis of energy, winter is coming. And then you go to America, again is inflation. But this part of the world is always late in catching up.
Mm.
So there are many who are now coming out of the whole system of work as employees and going into the startup generation, where they feel that they're more flexible. There's flexibility in their life. They can do what they want to do. It's not a crime to come to work in flip flops. If I were to do that at that stage 30, 40 years ago, people would give me a stare. What are you wearing flip flops and coming to work? But there's also a challenge, and the challenge is in the mindset today. And that is, how do we cope with what's coming ahead? So, for someone who has come out from a world, sometimes in the corporate world you think you're secure because you're working for somebody, you're working for a big name. It's like people now today, they all leave to go back to the government. They think that the government will give them that security. Because the moment they leave the government, suddenly it's like, where do I get my paycheck and where's my EPF and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of struggle that's going on. What would be your message to them? Because at the end of the day, I personally feel the biggest crisis is in the mind. If you don't have that mindset set, that you got to work now and have that balance in life, the work balance in life, we can have a wrecking ball in front of us. Talk to us.
Um, this scarcity mentality is everywhere. Scarcity is a fear-based mentality. In essence, there are only two primordial emotions. One is love, which is what religions and spirituality teaches us, and the other is fear. So fear is an element that is used to control. And unfortunately, centuries after centuries in this world, it's just a norm. So to step away from fear, first you have to address the emptiness inside.
Right.
So very often we reach and we grab for things, be it people or cars, material things, or money or whatever. We grab to fill a hole that is inside us. That scarcity is a lack. Lack of what? Lack of, individually it may be different, but in general, there are not that many varieties. Yeah. So lack of and people grab for material things not because they want the material things, but they want the material, they want the things, they want the feeling that the things would give them. You get what I mean?
Yes, yes. They feel that they've accomplished something.
But it's not it's
Uh,
not, it's not the thing per se, it's the
right.
feeling that the thing gives. Example, I used to drive a very nice car. I love cars, by the way. I still do, but Got to be mindful these days, right?
Yeah, right. You're telling me.
Right. So,
Yeah.
like when I was driving my nice car, I had a sense of, oh yeah, I'm cool,
Yes, yes.
So it's not the car that I'm after. It could be another model, but it's that feeling of, yeah, I'm at a
Somebody. I'm
yeah,
somebody.
yes.
Yeah.
So you see, if you can understand people's sense of lack, it's not really the things. It's actually the emptiness within themselves.
Oh, well spoken. Really, you hit the nail on the head because it's like owning a home, as simple as that.
Yes.
And many would, of course, it's important to have one of your own, fair enough, but that shouldn't be the desire of your life and your heart. You see,
No. Yes.
uh, because like like you said, I just sold my sports car. It was a Toyota Sora, and I treated it like a lady, I mean, lady on four wheels, and I had to sell it. And when I saw that car being driven away, it was
Yeah.
like, you know, in fact, I videoed it, Amy, and I said, yeah, I did, and I said, there she goes, and when
And I hope she lands in a better home, or
well, that's right. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it was a young guy who took it, and I remember when I first got it, and then here she comes. It was a different way, and then now I took one. There she goes.
yeah.
And but after the guy drove it away, and I was walking back to my place where I'm staying now, I felt relieved
Yes.
that it was not something that I was like living for or looked to go in for an evening drive in it, but it became a more of a liability than an asset. You see.
Yes.
And I think a lot of our lives are that way. And the greatest asset you can have is when you have your self worth.
Yep.
When you find out that there's no measure, you can't measure what you're worth.
Yep.
When you find it.
Yeah. Yeah. And in filling up the hollowness inside, it's easier to let go of what's external.
Right.
What's external can never fulfill what's inside, what's me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which leads me to the word that you used just now, and I think it's pointed that you brought it up, and that is vulnerability. I find that the more and more you open up yourself at this stage of your life or my life, you become very vulnerable, and to speak and share your failures, I feel rewarding
Yes.
because I'm amazed at the number of people who think that as a plastic surgeon, you have reached that part of life and you must be really comfortable and blah, blah, blah. But I've been more in valleys than on hilltops, you see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's 11 years ago I had open heart surgery. And when you talk about breathing, I still remember lying in the ICU in IJN in KL, and I could hear this voice, breathe, Dr. Lee, breathe, Dr. Lee. And they were taking out, extubating me. And then I had to learn how to blow and take deep breaths. And then I realized with tears, what a gift it is, because that's how man was actually formed when God breathed into this mud ball and gave him life, you see. That was how, the whole of Adam creation. So, talk to us about breathing exercises because you were in the corporate world and I don't think you had time to even breathe within inverted commas.
I think I was holding my breath more than breathing. Honest.
Right, So, yeah, so take us through those emotions because I think the two most important things that I can look back and think about would be breathing and water,
Mm.
which are the essential part of life. And when you talk about mind, body, soul kind of relationships, it's all about breath and breathing, and it's all about water and life. Even in the spiritual context, when we talk about life, living waters,
Mm.
a fountain of life, from the heart, everything is about water and life. So let's go into that space. Where you're breathing. How important is that for us to stop, take pause? I got my girls around me now, and they're all listening because so yeah, so take us a little bit of that so we get a taste of what breathing is like.
So, in yogic studies, right, in yoga, it's believed that a person's life is not determined by the number of years, it's determined by the number of breath.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay.
it makes sense to me because the slower you breathe, the longer your life. So when I teach breathing exercises, uh, I teach people how to control the breath, because the breath is both automatic and can be controlled. Correct?
Yeah.
It's one
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah.
in the body. So to breathe is actually to slow your heart rate, to also energize the body, because like qi, the body has qi, like qi gong and all that, right? Or
Uh-huh.
qi Japanese. So in Sanskrit it's called prana. So all these things are categorized as life force. Life force is not air, but life force is the element around us. Not just us, even trees and animals, plants are all thrive on life force. So when we do breathing exercise, right, what we are trying to do is actually to energize the cells in the body so that more oxygen gets absorbed efficiently, and therefore it improves the circulation of energy, as well as things like circulation of blood, and of course it clears your mind. That's the byproduct of a breathing exercise. So
Yeah.
breath work to me is a very important element in my teaching as well as my own practice. When I don't have time to do physical practice of yoga, I will just sit and breathe. It is a way to access going into a meditative state. For a lot of us, going into meditation is something super hard to do, especially us living in the city. But it is important to go into that space in order to slow the heart rate and to bring the stress down. So this thing about baseline stress. Uh, in the city, we don't realize that our baseline stress is not at zero. If you go to the outskirts, the people living in the countryside, their baseline stress is neutral, zero. But us, we have been operating from one or two. Okay, one or two, we don't realize it because it creeps up quietly. So
Okay.
when you get used to baseline stress one, then you get used to it. You're like, oh, okay, I'm fine. That's normal. And then it accumulates, become two. You're like, okay, this is normal. You're normal, and someone who's living in the outskirts is completely different.
Okay, so that's in that whole sphere of what you're practicing. Because
Yes.
if you ask me, my stress level for baseline would be probably 10. So so let's just move from that, because there are many ways and faculties of it. When you talk about aging, for me
Wow.
for me in the spiritual side is always about teach us to number our years so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. There are many ways of looking at age, and so for me, especially in plastic surgery, I talk more about smart aging as opposed to anti-aging, and that whole concept. Now, coming back to your faculties and how you transitioned out. Now, when you talk about practicality, when you talk about yourself, where did you find the most important part of you that transformation took place? What was that part of you that you really formed, you saw transformed when you delved into this wellness industry? What aspect? Like for me, if I were to come to you, the first thing I'll say, Amy, teach me how to sort out my anger. I mean, there's the transformation is a process. So, which is that part of you that you find, you look back now, you think that okay, I've changed in this particular area.
Um, there are a few actually. I'll start with one. And it's very closely tied to self-worth.
Okay, let's yeah, take us there.
So a person who doesn't have self-worth basically doesn't know they're worthy lah. Okay, I'll start with that. Okay, a person who doesn't have self-worth basically doesn't realize that they are worthy. Being worthy means you don't need someone else to elevate you. Yeah, and also being worthy means you can say no. There's so many ways to there's so many branch out of being worthy. You also being worthy simply means that you let go of control. So for me, the one of the biggest thing was to be able to let go of control of things and of people. Um, when you because and then when you want to control something or somebody, and more often than not, it doesn't turn out to be the way you want it to, not as what you expected. So then what happens? We get upset or angry,
Yes.
right? So for me as well, I'm a pretty hot tempered person, quick tempered, sorry, not hot tempered.
Quick
Um,
tempered, yeah.
so goes up, comes down. These days, uh, I go inward, and so the moment, okay, sorry, it's so hard to describe this. Okay, I'm gonna try. So the first thing about undoing all these things is awareness, right? And sometimes when you are starting out to transform, awareness can happen 3 days later. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, after you've done something, 3 days later you reflect, and then you're like, oh yeah, I was too quick. Okay, fine. Then the next time it happens, maybe you realize it 2 days later, still later, but 2 days later.
Right.
And gradually that realization, that awareness becomes so acute that when it is as it is happening, you are witnessing it.
Right.
Okay, so it becomes so present that you are witnessing your anger come up. So when you have that acute awareness, it's easier to, I'm not saying it's easy, it's easier to manage it.
Right.
Example, like a couple of days ago, I went hiking, and then somebody asked me, are you able to, can people control how they fall? Because like we're hiking, you slip and
Sure.
fall. Can people control how they fall? I said, yeah, I just did. And I literally just did. I slipped. And as I was slipping, I realized I was slipping. And I
Managed to, yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, awareness is not just, when you have awareness, it's not just about not being angry. It's not just about, but it's also avoiding a lot of unnecessary injuries, lah, you know?
You
Yes,
know, you're perfect because what you have taken us to now is the whole concept of mindfulness.
yes,
You have now opened the door to, let me just quote this Viktor Frankl. I say this all the time. And Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. So stay with that thought that you just spoke about, Amy. Keep it there, right? So he said these words. He said, between a stimulus and a response is a space.
yes, exactly.
In that space lies the power for us to choose the kind of response we want to have.
Exactly.
And that response can either give us freedom and it can also give us the right consequences of what that choice was made for.
All right.
In other words, what you are saying is perfect. That is, if we are mindful, there is power in the present.
Yes.
If we can just hold on for a while, be mindful of the situation right there and then, our response will be much more measured than 2 days later, 3 days later, because the damage would have already been done if we didn't catch it at that moment.
Yeah, but to be realistic, right? A lot of people will not be able to, reach that immediately. It's going to take time.
It's a
It's
skill.
it's going to take time.
Mindfulness is like a tool, it's like a skill
But
that you
I
learn.
I don't want people to be discouraged. I just want to say that I was I had the worst temper, and all that. So if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. So both we are both in the same boat.
Yeah.
Because if there's anything that I can still trying, but because we are all the time working like that, give me this, give me that when you're operating, and why the hell was this not done, and then it becomes part of your character, it becomes part of your blood vessels, it's inside your DNA. There's a seal there that says, sometimes people look at you and say you're an angry person. And
Yes.
then now when they kind of like slowly you realize that the cost I paid for that anger is a scar on my chest. And it eaten up from the inside. So I think this whole concept of mindfulness puts us in a much better stable position, even though you're vulnerable, that you have to back off and just take stock of that situation, but it makes you much more healthier, that your response does not leave scars behind. And I think that's the gift of, just knowing this whole concept of mindfulness, and the second part, which I'm going to talk about later, will be manifestation. And am I saying the right thing with you?
Yes, but can I just add before we move on that
Sure.
um, uh, in my life there are a lot of teachers, both in real life as well as known figures. So there are some books that were catalysts to my transformation, huge catalyst to my transformation. One of it is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yes, yes, yes.
After I completed that book, right, I was in this, you talk about that space.
Yes.
I was walking around, I was living with that gap, that space, that spaciousness, not space. That spaciousness, I was walking around with it for a good 6 months. I was in absolute bliss. I was, it's amazing. The book opened me up. Opened me up.
Powerful.
So
Powerful.
yes, amazing book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's similarly, there's a lady called Professor Amy Oden, Dr. Amy Oden, and she wrote this book too, the Here and Now, the power of mindfulness, here and now. It's available to us. It's a capacity that God has given all of us,
Yeah.
that we can live in the present. There's power in the now,
Yes.
and that's something very important. And now I just want to take you a flip the coin over,
Okay.
that while you're walking in that spaciousness,
Okay.
you set boundaries for yourself. It was not a space without boundaries. I mean, you kept within that. Talk to us about boundaries in your life. How did you set them up so that you found yourself?
So saying no is not something easy for Asians. We don't we say ala malu lah, or we say not nice lah, that kind of hesitation or reservation. Um, but and then because of that, very often we just say okay, even though we're not feeling 100% okay. We have some nagging feelings. Again, that nagging feeling is connection to your heart. So
Right,
if touch from the heart, that feeling is just going to be tugging at you, and you're like, shh, quiet, Yeah.
right,
In being able to draw boundaries, also you have to know you are worthy. You don't owe anyone anything. And I'm not saying this in a resentful way. A lot of people talk about saying no and drawing boundaries. They have this resentment or this angry kind of undertone. Not like that at all. You're saying no because I'm sorry, but I can't. I hope you get it done, but I can't do it.
right,
Just that. And also saying no, offer no explanation. Why do you need to explain to people your reasons why you're not doing something?
right.
Right?
Okay.
That the other person should be able to take your no non-personally and just accept the no as a no, that you can't do it. There's no grudge, there's no hard feelings. So it's both sides. So in a healthy way to live, to be true to oneself, to live authentically, is to be able to say no to someone and to be able to accept someone else's no without any emotions. It is as it is.
No, I mean points. I mean, really, that's well stated and well explained, because it begins with the humility of the heart. You see, because once ego comes in, you will not take the no.
Exactly.
But I've learned how to receive the word no graciously, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
Because
yes,
that it's not easy to get a no, but if it's meant well, it's because there's a healing nature behind the no.
and you
Because
free your mind from
yeah,
being wrapped in that space where oh, how do I tell her no now? How do I say no now? Which you should have done from the beginning. Then you can just walk away free and you can be
Right.
completely present instead of having that nagging thought.
True, true. No, no, I mean, yeah, listen, Amy, it's there's so much to delve with you. And tell me, are you happy now?
I am. Can you tell?
I dare not use the word happy because it's more than what I see. But
Um,
it's a beautiful place to be
yes.
when you find that every day you wake up and you're at peace with yourself. That's abundance. For me, that's an abundant life. And this whole concept of mindfulness, manifest, all these are just words that the world uses, and we are trying to explain things in the form of words. But to be happy, to be at peace with oneself is the greatest gift that one can reach. We are always desiring, we are always working towards that fulfilled life, what it looks like.
Mm.
But how? I mean, it's yeah, it's wonderful to hear this from you.
Oh, but having sorry to interrupt, but
Oh, sure.
having said that, right? I mean, we're talking about leaving the corporate world and being true to yourself and all that. I also acknowledge that there are people who are absolutely happy in the corporate world. You know,
Sure. Yeah,
happy
yeah.
working for somebody. There are people like
Oh,
that.
yes, yes.
For them, there's no problem at all. Do whatever you do. Do whatever fulfills you, whatever lights you up. Do that.
Yes, and let me just wrap up the whole thing with I think the other thing that I've always struggled with in my own life, and I think we're all relational beings. We relate from the time we were born. There is a mother, there is a father. We are born into a relational world.
Yes.
How important is relationships to you now as you find yourself into this whole space of wellness and mindfulness and all the us? you know, relationships to me play a very important role in one's life. And how's that for you? I mean, has that been played a very important part in your nurturing this whole concept of wellness and mindfulness as a coach?
For sure, because we are social beings, right? And we thrive on connection with people. The saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. Basically means we are vibrational beings. You talked about manifestation earlier. It's the same vibration that we emit that we attract. So it's very important that to be surrounded by people who feed your soul. That's to begin with. And when you have that circle around, in what I do, because I teach, right? When I teach not from an egoic point. I teach because I want you to be better,
Right.
because I have something to share. If you find that what I share is of value, I will give. Uh, uh, you know, I'm. I don't want to say that I'm here to serve. I don't approach it that way. But when I know that someone has benefit from what I share, nothing fulfills me more than that.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's the most beautiful part of life, isn't it? When you know
Yes,
that you're adding value to
yes,
someone else's life. Yeah.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
In fact, my next guest in the next few weeks is a gentleman called Larry Kaufman. And he wrote the book called The NCG Factor, which is networking, connecting, and the most important part of it is giving.
Mm,
Because if you can have all the benefits of everything that life gives you, but if you don't have the gift of giving it out and letting it out and bless someone else's life, I don't think you would have reached the place of abundance.
right.
Because I think that's when it's there. So Amy, as we wrap up this wonderful hour with you, what are the take homes that you can give to those who are actually thinking about leaving the corporate world and going out, finding more about themselves, finding purpose in life, finding meaning in life? That's the reason what we're all searching for, isn't it? Finding some purposeful, driven life. What is the take home that you would give them from your own walk in journey?
Uh, this is not from me. This is what I came across as well when I was searching. So I'm just going to share it. I can't remember who it's from, but some listeners might be aware. So when you are looking for an alternative to come back to yourself, to live a life that is more fulfilling, ask yourself, what is your passion? Okay, again, that's very vague, right? What is your passion? Your passion is something that you do, and you can be, as you're doing it, you get lost in time. Time does not exist when you're doing it, and you would gladly do it even if you don't get paid. Of course, I'm not saying you don't get paid for your passion, but to
Sure.
to trace the passion when you have lost touch after so long, you can try this route. What is your passion? So at first you may come up with a list of it. Then from the list of it, ask yourself, which of these can I do where I get lost in time and I would do it even if no one is paying me? Let's say you don't have a need for money, but that is where you should start. Yeah.
Right. I mean, perfect. I mean, I tell you, you've really said it well. I realized like this particular Heart Talk podcast, the birth of it was when I was lying in the ICU, in the intensive care unit, and with all the wires coming out from my neck, and there were people surrounding me, and they were fighting for their life. And I realized that I would do it for free because now I'm not only a plastic surgeon, but I'm also a patient. And I had all the questions that I wanted to ask the specialist, because I was going through such a difficult time in my life, life, I thought I was going to die. I thought all sorts of things were going through. And then I realized, fantastic, this is a platform that I love to do. And that give it to somebody else's life, help them to think it through if they're struggling. And I think you said it well, that this is the end point in life when we do things that come from within our hearts, and live it out and live it well. So listen, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much
My pleasure.
for hosting this wonderful show, giving a chance to people like me with a story to tell and to be heard. I think that is so important because even if just one person listening in walks away with something to gain, the purpose is already served.
Absolutely. Spot on, Amy. There's only one Amy Low and there's only one journey. And I remember saying this, that if you have to choose a path, don't choose the path that everybody else has treaded on, but choose one and leave a trail where nobody else has had their footsteps on. And that's what you're doing. You're leaving a trail behind where others can follow and listen and not make the mistakes that we've all done in life. So on that note, I want to congratulate you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for blessing all those that spend time with you. And from all of us here, from Mary, the producer of Heart Talk, and the ENER Club. And once again, the ENER Club, people ask me, what's this ENER Club? It's ENER, empowering a network of entrepreneurs in the real world. And that real world is when you find your self-worth, because it's your inner world, it's not the world out there. That's the real world. To be a real person is a gift of life. So Amy, from all of us, thank you very much for giving us this 1 hour, having a wonderful lunch, and now's the time to tuck into that chicken that's waiting for you.
Thank you everyone too for listening in. Thank you, Dr. Charles.
My pleasure. Bye for now.
All right.
Hi everyone, this is Charles Lee here. If you enjoyed what you just heard, then please subscribe to Heart Talk with Dr. Charles Lee, and press that bell so that you get that ding dong when we are next up live. And we're also on Instagram at Dr. Charles Lee Pro. You can also get me on Facebook, the ENER Club. So together, let's just live that one life that we have and live it well. See ya.